All right, guys, what is up? Welcome in GC Live, Wednesday episode of the show. I'm Wes Mitchell. He is Chris Clark, presented by our good friend Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans. Going to tell you a little bit more about Clint and some of our great sponsors here in a moment. But Chris, I don't know about you, dude. Like I got the bug this week, man. Like I started to look around. I was listening to some national podcasts, started to try to dive into the national scene a little bit. There's some top 25 chatter right now because of the coaches poll coming out. Players report tomorrow. Camp starts Friday. I don't know why, man, but for whatever reason, this week I was like, we're almost there. Football is here. Have you gotten the bug yet, too, or are you still holding off a little bit, man?
Fully infected. I've got it. And, there was actually a little bit, Wes, this morning. There was like a little bit of like, this is football weather. It smells like it a little bit. So, yeah, I'm super excited, man. Like camp starting up. Not the same as the old days in terms of being able to go out there and plop the tailgate chair down for a Steve Spurrier practice and watch a couple hours and see Alshon Jeffrey battle Stephon Gilmore during practice all day. But we'll get to see some bits and pieces. We'll hear things, like you said, media day tomorrow. So we'll get an opportunity to, hear from some of the players, coaches, maybe get some more insights from the summer leading into practice starting up Friday. So yeah, it's going to be here before we know it, man. I'm super excited, stoked about it.
Yeah, and pointed out by Warren here in the chat, 1 month exactly to go. Man, I think the chat is fired up today too. We've got more quick responses there than we have as of late. It's a job, man, so you're always like on with it. But I feel like my excitement level has been a little bit in hibernation, and for whatever reason, it just hit this week. So I'm ready to go. And Chris, shout out to something we're trying new. Shout out to our Instagram group that is on right now. We're also, I'm not promising this moving forward, but we are live right now on Instagram Live. If it gets a few more people to watch or listen to the show, we'll keep it up. If we don't really see much of a response from it, we will obviously just kind of shelve that and you'll never hear about it again. But first, before we dive into preseason camp, we've got some great intel, position battles to discuss, storylines to discuss. Got to tell you about a couple of great supporters of the show. First of all, my guy Clint Hammond, CMG Home Loans, ClintHammond.com, 803-422-6797. Call him, text him. NMLS number 71597. Call him to talk about if you want to buy a home. Call him if you want to talk about your expectations for Lenora Sellers this year. Either one, Clint would love to hear from you. And as we always tell him, Chris, you may not be buying a home right now. Most of you probably just aren't buying a home. You might buy one home your entire life. Most of you, that might not be you right now. All we ask is when you get to that point in your life, give Clint a chance to earn your business. Or if that's something you're going to do in the next few years, you want to do in the next few years, go sit down with Clint. This part would be absolutely free, and he will go over what you need to know about the process of buying a home so you can start saving money. You can know how much you're going to need. 803-422-6797, our guy Clint Hammond.
And let's tell you about our friends over at Ferry Chevrolet. So you may not be in the market for a new or used vehicle, but if you are, like, man, it's about that time. All we ask, make sure that Ferry Chevrolet is your first call, 803-937-4531. They're conveniently located in Orangeburg. Of course, that's a pretty quick drive, not too bad from Columbia. From Charleston, the cool thing about Ferry Chevrolet, you can also check out the website. That's ferrychevrolet.com, F-A-I-R-E-Y, Chevrolet.com. Check out their new and used inventory. Check out their financing options. Peruse the website. Check out everything. Contact them directly from there. Still led by a fourth-generation dealer, family-owned business, Ferry Chevrolet. That's Joseph Ferry running the show over there. They've been around, guys, since 1926. We're doing something right here in the Palmetto State. Maybe it's not time for that vehicle yet, but when it is, just make sure you remember Ferry Chevrolet. That's ferrychevrolet.com.
All right, and I was losing your audio there for a moment, Chris, so check on that. I don't know if that was just me or if it was that microphone cord again. So Oh, yep, Randy weighing in as well. We'll come back to Chris, but y'all go check out Ferry Chevrolet for, of course, all of your car needs. Man, let's dive into this thing. You've got some great notes on Gamecock Central up right now on the Insiders Report. Just some pre-camp intel that we've been picking up. And, man, a great time to just reassess, I think, where things are in terms of expectations for this team, position battles, and storylines. And we've talked about it all offseason in terms of the offense, Kendall Briles, what it's going to mean for Lenora Sellers. I'm going to try to stay away from that topic as much as I can just because I feel like we have hit it over and over and over again. Let's hit on a couple of newer, different things, and you can get the full depth on the Insiders Report. But, Chris, why don't you share maybe one of your favorite storylines or pieces of intel that you picked up that Gamecock Central members just read about this week?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably several to choose from. And, Wes, at some point, I'm sure as camp rolls along, and certainly before the season, we're going to talk about some questions that this team has because there are some, right? But I think we're all excited about the season. We're all in good moods. So let's maybe talk about some of the positive things that we've heard, right? And so to kind of steer the conversation away from the storylines that are maybe getting the most run, and obviously Sellers and the new offensive coaching staff led by Kendall Briles, those are the highlights, right? But what else is there? I think one of the things, Wes, that really stands out is we continue to hear that South Carolina really likes what they have internally on the defensive line. Now, people probably like hearing that, but some more context and why should you be excited? Well, obviously this is all on paper now, right? You've got some new faces in that group, whether it's freshmen who are expected to make an impact, and I'm thinking of Julian Walker, I'm thinking of Noah Clark, whether it's a returner who's shown flashes like Gabe Brownlow-Dindy, whether it's a transfer, Caleb Herring at edge. Obviously getting Dylan Stewart back is significant for this season as a junior, as a third-year player, but also some of the other pieces that they've added in. And one that I talked about in the report a good bit was Tomey. Tomey is a guy that South Carolina, when he hit the portal, really made it a priority of we need to go get this guy. He's super experienced, fifth year of college football, interestingly at his fifth school, but everything that we've heard about him is just super positive. They feel like, he's experienced. He's been around a while, fifth year, played a lot of snaps, really good scheme fit for what Clayton White and Travian Robertson want to do up front. Football junkie type guy, always watching film, always asking questions, and just has a maturity about him. And so, you think back to the 2024 season, Wes, that's where you want to be at the end of the year if you're South Carolina. You want to go beyond that, of course. But South Carolina that year was in the conversation at the end of the year for the college football playoff. Ultimately, that's the goal. It's not, hey, let's go from 4-8 to getting back to a bowl game. Frankly, nobody is going to be satisfied around here with that. And so to do that, you got to have a really good defensive line. You got to be good everywhere. Got to have great quarterback play. But the 2024 squad, one of the first things that you think about with that team is how good they were up front. Deep at defensive tackle, a freshman Dylan Stewart, and a Gursky winner and Kyle Kennard. You've got Stewart back. A lot of the other faces, or all of them, are different, right? But South Carolina seems to feel really good about the depth that they've assembled between transfers and returners up front, particularly, I think, at the defensive tackle spot.
Well, and I think, man, as much as we've talked about the offensive scheme and what does that look like under Kendall Briles, and let's be, the Clayton White offense or defensive scheme, it's probably going to be pretty similar to what we've seen most of the time he's been at South Carolina. But I think the great thing about Clayton is he does tweak this thing every single year, and he's never been shy about going to NFL teams, going to other college teams, and just gathering as much information as he can in the offseason to tweak things. So I do think, sticking with that defensive tackle room, he was asked at Birdies with Beamer can't remember the exact question, but it was something about the scheme and changes and stuff like that. And he's basically said, look, like this, it is the same scheme, but there are some different things they want to do to feature different players up front. And, that's one thing we've heard, like, hey, the guys that filled in last year actually played pretty well at defensive tackle, but they weren't quite exactly what the group was in 2024, just in terms of that quick twitch, that ability to be a pass rusher as well on the interior, and ability to get into the backfield. And I think with this group, you have some guys that can do that, but you also have some guys who can, kind of be two gap players, can be run stoppers, can just do a little bit of everything for you. So I think they're going to have some fun with picking out how exactly to use those guys and keep them all fresh. I think you go 6 deep at that spot. I mean, Noah Clark just continues to create buzz, man. I would say that this was a 4-star kid, but I don't think he was as highly recruited as what the buzz is for him right now. Like, we were quickly hearing his name during the spring. That has continued through the summer. He is going to make an impact on this football team. And so what does that look like when you have 5 or 6 other guys in the room that you can count on too? I don't know what it means in terms of snaps, but I think all those guys are going to be able to just hopefully stay healthy, stay fresh, be rotated in and out. And, I think that helps an edge room too that maybe has just a couple of more questions than the interior room does, and that takes a little bit of pressure off of them. So I'm interested to see not just the group in terms of those individual players, but what does that mean for scheme tweaks going into this season for Clayton White and, that defensive staff. Sticking on the defensive side, man, I tried to, like, every position we know to an extent is like kind of up for grabs, but I think to different levels. And so when I tried to break down, all right, what are the position battles people really need to be paying attention to? I tried to say, all right, let's focus on battles for starting positions for one, because you can really get down into the weeds. Like the linebacker 4 spot is one that I think is an intriguing battle. Does a casual fan necessarily want to focus on that compared to position battles for starting jobs? Maybe not. But I think you look at this, and we're just talking defense right now. You look at the safety spot alongside Peyton Williams. I think you can kind of pencil Peyton in, man. The safety spot beside him, and then that nickelback role where I think Quashid Scott and Gerald Kilgore have kind of just battled really throughout the spring, throughout the offseason. Those are the two, not that somebody couldn't hop up and surprise us, but those are the two that I think on paper right now, you go, hey, these are genuine, bona fide position battles going into preseason camp where those guys know if I perform great over the next month, might be in the starting lineup. If I take a step back, I might be in a reserve role.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, too, on getting into the weeds. 4th linebacker, depth at corner is a big one, Wes, right? But if you're talking about, it's something that the staff has publicly talked about. Shane Beamer mentioned it at Birdies with Beamer. But, yeah, those are the two, I think, most competitive spots defensively in terms of starters. You look at, I know you and I maybe we still do have a differing opinion on nickel, right? Like, you're maybe leaning towards Quashid Scott. I lean maybe towards Gerald Kilgore because of the experience factor. He's played more. He's an older player.
Let me say I am a Kilgore family fan. Like,
yes.
I absolutely
am
a Kilgore family fan. So just let me put that out there.
Not trying to blow up your spot there. But, I think, now, here's the fascinating thing about a couple of these battles, though. What it is game one, and I think you can extend this out, but we're just talking about defense. So I'm going to try to stay on track on topic. What it is game one doesn't necessarily have to be what it is game 6, game 12. We know that Torian Gray will play multiple guys. We know that. I mean, you don't want this situation, Wes. We saw 3-4 guys play nickel in 2023. Now, performance related, some of that, and so ideally you want to find a guy and have him go win that job going into camp and keep that job, because if he keeps it, he's probably playing pretty well. The second guy there still might be able to play, but somebody's probably going to hold down that spot as a starter unless you have to make a change there. You think about safety. You look at David Busey. He's probably your opposite Peyton Williams. He's probably where your mind goes first. He's got a little bit more experience, as going into his third year, played special teams, etc., played some at safety. But you have on his heels a guy who is frankly built different in Jasavian Currents, who has never played a college snap, but got here during spring, has maturity. He's one of the guys out of this freshman class that you look at and go, all right, that's not a typical freshman. You don't find a lot of guys like Jasavian Currents who have his size, his physical ability, his mentality. Does that mean he's starting game one? I don't know. Does it mean he's playing game one? Probably, especially given the opponent. No disrespect to Kent State. Can he work himself into, hey, this kid's just been too good, we got to start him? But those are two, I think, bona fide. There aren't a ton of bona fide starter position battles on the team this year, but that's certainly a couple of them.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think the nickelback spot, I just think it's going to be a little bit different this year, man. Like, I think when Jalen Kilgore, returning starter, he was the nickelback last year, period. And, yeah, you rotate guys in, right? You try to get somebody a breather. You they actually, would play Cisse there some just to if Jalen was injured or to give Jalen a breather. Then you saw, there's some Kelvin Hunter. It looked like Jaquel Hallman looked like he was going to fill in at one point, and he got hurt. So I'm not saying he was going to play every snap, but every snap that you weren't trying to get him a breather or that you weren't up by a lot or down by a lot, 24, Jalen Kilgore was going to be on the field, right? And so I just think that spot's going to be different this year. I just wonder, so we're not talking about linebacker, even though there are 2 spots and 3 guys for it, because I just consider those guys co-starters. J.O., J.R., and Sean Murphy, those 3 guys will be playing those 2 spots, and if they're all healthy, their snaps probably will be about equal, man. They're kind of interchangeable, and they can both play each linebacker spot. So I don't really look at that as a position battle. Maybe it is internally, but whoever doesn't go out there in those first 2 spots will be on the field very soon. Those are co-starters, in my opinion. So I don't know necessarily if we'll even have a winning starter at the nickelback spot. Maybe that's a co-starter situation too. Maybe it's based on down, distance, health, opponent. Not everybody is Jalen Kilgore, who can be long, and I'm talking about tall, long arms, can cover, can tackle, is a linebacker from a physical standpoint, is a corner from a coverage standpoint. Not every guy can be that. I think you're kind of talking about an aggregate situation. Can you get what Jalen Kilgore gave you by a combination of Gerald Kilgore and Quashid Scott throughout a season? And they just – I think that's going to be like much more close to 50-50 or 55-45, 60-40, as opposed to like one guy plays 75% of the snaps. Now the safety spot to me is a little bit more interesting. I think you have to give David Busey the edge right now. And he's a guy who's been here. He's going to help the team. He's going to help on special teams. He's going to play. But I think Currents is just one of those guys that if and when he takes over and gets into the starting lineup, it's going to be hard for anybody to unseat him because that's just who he is, man. Like he's kind of just built to go be an SEC starting safety, in my opinion. So I think there's a little bit, and this sounds negative to Boosie. It's not, but it's just, to me, it's a little bit more. And these things sometimes just work themselves out. So a guy will get banged up, a guy will get dinged up, a guy will have to slide over to a spot. They typically just work themselves out. But Currents, to me, regardless of how it happens and how he ends up in the lineup, it feels like a more about when instead of if that happens at some point this season.
Yeah, I think if you're taking your best guess of does he break into the starting lineup this year, I'd be inclined to say yes. And that's kind of based on, not even based on looking at kind of the on paper, right? Like, okay, this kid was a big time 4-star. He's huge. He's got these athletic tools. It's also based on, he was here in the spring, right? So there's been feedback on how he performed in the spring, what his outlook is. And so you do have to do some projection for it because he's not there yet, but you certainly wouldn't be surprised if he is. One more note on linebacker, Wes. So you mentioned the snap distribution. Just for a reference, last year, J.O. was the top linebacker in terms of snaps, 599. Then you had Fred Johnson right behind him, 565, and Sean Murphy at 430. So, Murphy, even as that third linebacker, quote unquote, with a team that plays a ton of nickel, still played 430 snaps, so he played a lot of football, and I think you can expect that to continue this year. And it's kind of, I was on the show with JB and the guys this morning, Wes, and we were talking about that, like maybe one of the more under discussed parts of this team. I think a lot of other aspects of this offseason have just kind of overshadowed, right? Like Carolina's retention of, the Stewart, Sellers, Harbor, et cetera. Bryles, new offensive line coach, new running backs coach, et cetera. It's kind of taken up a lot of the oxygen, and I get that. But it's not every day or every year, I should say, where, hey, you got your top 3 linebackers back, and they're all good players. 2 of them were recruited to Bama to play linebacker by Nick Saban. And all guys that are now a year older in the scheme and showed some things last year and actually could still get substantially, I think, especially in the case of J.O. and JR, I think they could get a lot better and take a leap, in what could be their last year in college. We'll see. Good problem to have if they play that well at the end of the year. So I think we've talked about it a lot, but I feel like it's a little bit under discussed going into the season.
Yeah, and I think some of your national guys that are like really paying attention, Phil Steele has been on several shows. He's mentioned it, so I think your people that like are really dialed into the rosters realize it, but maybe people that aren't quite as dialed in on that stuff don't realize just how much upside. I mean, I think J.O. and JR probably have as much athleticism as any duo of linebackers that South Carolina has ever had, especially at the same time. So that group, and just think back this time last year, we were kind of getting, at least, especially a couple of weeks out from the season, we were like firmly in the, man, we're hearing good things about these guys, but I got to see it on the field stage, right? Like we were in the, they could be okay there, even though they lose a D Knight and a Bam Martin Scott and a Debo. But you were going, I'm always, I feel like I have the 2 voices like on each shoulder a lot of, like this time of year we'll be like, man, we're sure hearing a lot of good things about those backers last year. And then there's that other part of me going, but dude, they haven't played. They really haven't played. So how much do we feed into that hype? How much do we sort of pump the brakes? So yeah, I think, all right, so nickelback, safety, linebackers, we talked about defensive tackle. Corners, if healthy, I mean, Judge and Macari got to be first out there, right? Like, I don't think that's – are we in agreement on that? That'd be a shock.
That would be a shock if not.
All right, let's say Dylan's out there at one spot. Is it Caleb Herring, or do we think that's up for grabs?
Yeah, we were trying to game this out early this week, Wes, and
And if Dylan is, held out for a week or what, everybody has their opinion on when he will actually be back.
And nobody actually knows right now.
Then who are you're talking about 2 starters?
Yeah. And so let's say, and I'd say this mainly to make it easier on us. Just kidding. But I mean, if Dylan's back at some point, game 1, game whatever, he should be back. Let's try to figure out the other spot. And so who are there's several guys in there that I think have a chance to play. So to work backwards, one example, I feel like people are forgetting he's on the team because he got injured last year, George Wilson. Now, is George Wilson your starter opposite Dylan? I do not think so. He's probably more of a third down, role-playing pass rusher. But you remember, Wes, before he got hurt last year, creating some buzz in camp. Hey, this guy is twitchy. He's going to be able to help. Lo and behold, gets hurt. And so is he a role player? Yeah, I think so, if healthy. But is he a starter? Probably not. Who has that starting capability? I mean, I would go Caleb Herring. He's a guy that has a lot of talent, former number 1 prospect in the state of Tennessee when he came out of high school. 2 sacks each against Georgia and Mississippi State last year. Looks good physically. Just hasn't put it together fully yet. And I think the mindset's been there. We've also heard more than one anecdote about how solid he's been stopping the run. So now when you think about, okay, who can play every down potentially? Who can play on early downs? Caleb Herring's a guy you feel good about doing that. And he's more experienced than a Julian Walker, who I think is going to play, but is a true freshman. Anthony Addison, fantastic spring. Crazy motor. Little undersized, yes. Is he maybe more along the lines of a Brian Thomas Jr., who worked himself into being a starter later in his career? Maybe so. So I'm going Herring, if I have to pick right now.
Yeah, I am too, man. I think that's when we'll be keeping an eye on it during camp. But right now, you probably think Herring, and then if you're talking about filling out a depth chart or at least the rotation, then yeah, Julian Walker firmly going to be in that rotation, I would think. Anthony Addison firmly in there. And I look at George Wilson and I think designated pass rusher. This is a guy that I can put out there on the field in late game situations where I know the opponent is in pass mode and I can put out there on 3rd and long and say, go get the quarterback. And he can fill a role for you, which I think, there is a place for that. It's not really just about how many snaps do you play. Sometimes it's about, are you able to be impactful in the snaps that you do get on the field? So, man, that spot, I feel like in some ways it's a little bit like what I was talking about linebacker for last year. It's a little bit like if you tell me you have questions about that position overall, I can't really push back on you that much. But at the same time, if you fast forwarded and said, hey, man, that edge room ended up playing really well this year, I mean, I believe that completely. I think there's talent there. Early returns on Deion Barnes are that he is a heck of a coach. I think he's good for Caleb Herring. Caleb mentioned to me, hey, I didn't do everything I needed to do stepping in the building consistently early in my career at Tennessee, And that was a focus of his, to step in the building every single day. And it sounds cliche, but to get better, to feel like I did what I needed to do today. I think a guy like Deion is excellent for him in that. So I'm with you. If Dylan's out there, I think it's probably Dylan and Caleb. If he's not out there game 1, it's probably Caleb and then either Julian or Anthony Addison, I would think. So something just to keep an eye on this preseason. I don't know if it's quite as much of a battle maybe as some of those other spots, but that is the beauty of preseason ball. It can change in a hurry. If Julian just keeps pushing, if Anthony Addison keeps pushing, maybe we have a different story as this thing starts to play out. All right, y'all, we're at the halfway point, which means, Chris, I've seen people do an unboxing Are you ready to do our unwrapping?
So I got too excited, and I
You
kind
went
of
ahead and unwrapped it.
yeah,
Hey, can you just crinkle it to make it sound like you're
yeah.
all
What
right?
is it? The ASMR?
Yeah. I wasn't gonna say it, but yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly
Man,
what it is.
so we gotta welcome Chris, our friends at Poncho and their game day collection. Poncho makes the ultimate performance shirts for outdoors. It is a go-to for you and about to be a go-to for me and Chris for all seasons. And man, Chris, there you go. Hold it up. Not only looks great, but they sent me one as well. Feels great, feels comfortable, and man, so not only do you have the game day collection that is now live with a bunch of schools across the country, including Carolina, you got the script Carolina right now. This is actually pretty fun, dude. This is a pretty fun little experiment, promotion, whatever you want to call it, that they're doing. So if you buy your team's game day shirt, so if you, Johnny Gamecock out there, buys that Gamecock shirt right there between August 2nd, so that was the beginning of this week, through August 16th, you got a couple weeks, you're covered by Poncho's natty back guarantee. Love this. If the Gamecocks, against all odds, go win the college football national championship, Poncho will let you keep the shirt and give you a full refund for your purchase. So pretty freaking cool. I love creative promotions and ideas, and man, that's a cool one. If you, they've got a bunch of different shirts already on there as well. If you have like friends and family that are fans of other teams and schools and all that, Clemson is on there too. Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, A&M, Florida State, just to name a few. But if you go to ponchooutdoors.com/Gamecock Central, enter your email, you'll get $10 off and free shipping on your first order. That's Poncho, PONCHO, outdoors.com/Gamecock Central. Head there, drop in your email, get $10 off, free shipping. Once you try one, you'll get why you're going to have a closet full from there. And the natty back guarantee, I put that up there, man, with we were talking about this on the radio today. Hats off to Akron. The promotion they're running right now, where if you go get season tickets to Akron football, which how is it only $75? I still don't understand that.
It's Akron.
But still.
Bro. Yeah, I know. You're right.
Inflation, dude. How is it only $75? Are people going to Akron games for $30 5 years ago for the entire season?
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, I don't know if y'all have seen this, but if you're a season ticket holder, $75 to Akron, you get entered for a chance to be their freaking play caller for the first drive of the season, the first home game drive of the season. That is amazing. So shout out to Akron. I didn't throw away $75 like some people just to be in there, but very cool idea. Shout out to Akron. And, man, shout out to our friends at Ride Tech Electric as well.
Let's tell them about Ride Tech Electric. One of our favorite companies, of course, around here. Proud sponsor of Gamecock Central. And they're a locally owned electrical company based right here where we are in the Midlands, over in Lexington, founded by Steven back in 2007, serving Columbia, Lexington, and the Midlands ever since. 4.9 stars on average, over 400 Google reviews. They do residential and commercial work. And some quick things to know about Ride Tech and how they're different from other electrical companies. Every electrician on the team is a direct Ride Tech employee, so no subcontractors. You're not going to have somebody come out to your home or business, figure out what your problem is, what you're looking for, quote you something, and then send a bunch of people to your home or business, and you go, I do not know who these people are. Direct Ride Tech employees, they're going to tell you the price before they touch a single wire. Every repair is backed with a 1-year parts and labor guarantee. So if you got flickering lights, dead outlets, tripping breakers, if you need to upgrade your panel, whatever it is, electrical, give Ride Tech Electric a call, 803-303-8274. A real person picks up. That's Ride Tech Electric, ridetech.com.
All right, shout out to those awesome sponsors. Let's get back to South Carolina football and let's talk a little offense, Chris. I know we've beat the whole scheme and Kendall Briles thing to death, but it was mentioned to us this week, and I think worth mentioning because just of how things went last year. This is one of those things that maybe some years you just roll your eyes like, what does that really mean? And that is the confidence that Kendall Briles A carries himself with, and B the way it rubs off on the other guys on offense, notably Lenora Sellers, who I think has always been kind of this just naturally confident guy who just lets his play do the talking, always had great instincts about him, just was a bona fide playmaker. And last year, y'all all saw it, offense in general, Sellers in particular, it just didn't quite feel or look the way we expected, the way we thought it would, the way we thought it should. So that is one thing we've heard. There's some early buzz, maybe not early buzz, but at least preseason buzz that, hey, Briles just has this way about it. If you watch his interviews, Chris, he had a great interview, actually, I thought, with Jay and Terry on 107.5 at Birdies with Beamer. He's a guy, like, there's just like he sits back, there's like a relaxed tone. It's not really a cockiness. It's more of just like, my system works. We want the guys to have fun. We just want them to go play ball. And so I think that's worth noting considering how things went last year. I really do. And but I don't want to spend a full segment on that. We've done that enough this offseason. I want to talk about a few particular guys, man. And we've started to hear, here's always one of my questions this time of year. We talked about all the guys in the spring. Who that arrived in the summer or late May, if you will, do we need to be talking about? Who that arrived, let's be honest, these days it's late. Who that arrived, quote unquote, late can still just help this football team. And I think the two names to watch on that right now, camp hasn't even started yet. This is summer buzz stuff. Believe it or not, Sequel Patterson, who, and I say believe it or not because he enters a wide receiver room that already has depth and talent. But there's buzz that Sequel has already started to make people take notice of his ability. And then I would say Darius Gray on the offensive line, who comes in. We knew coming out of high school, this kid was a 5-star according to some rankings. And you're going, okay, as an offensive lineman, that's not the easiest spot to go ahead and play. I'm not saying Darius Gray is a starter in week 1, but I think there's enough conversation already that leads me to believe that Darius Gray is going to find his way onto the football field and help this team at some point this year. And I think the same for Sequel, if he can. There's always that question, can you keep that up, right? Like, can you keep pushing? These are young guys. They're freshmen. Freshmen typically, in my experience, Chris, most of them are not Nick Emmanwori. In my experience, freshmen, it's like, then up, then down, then up, then down, then up. And we don't always see all the little ups and downs. It's very hard to just be up here right off the bat. So there has to be some consistency there. But in terms of early buzz, Sequel and Darius creating some buzz for themselves behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I think you made a great point. So separately, for separate reasons, when you look at them, even though those guys were, especially Darius Gray, like super highly rated prospect. Sequel, great offers. Remember, reclass from 2027 to 2026. Also a highly rated guy with a really nice offer list. On the surface, if you're just looking at it on paper, you're like, man, it's going to be hard for those guys to break in. Receiver is one of the more competitive rooms on the team. Like, that's a room that has some depth in terms of trying to figure out, like, who are the guys? Nick Carber's a guy. Jaden Sellers is, I think, Wes, do you agree, a probable starter? Jaden Sellers, right? another spot, you've got, Mazio Bennett's going to play. He had a really good spring and summer. You've got Nitro Tuggle as a transfer. You got DJ Black as a transfer who's picked up some buzz. You have some young guys from that 2025 class that are, looking to make a move up. You got Donovan Murph, who played a lot last year, trying to make a move. And so, at the back half, I think you could say, of what could be the rotation, a lot of guys jockeying for position. So you go, all right, well, how is a guy who got here later, as you said, going to potentially break through? And I think you just never know, right? Like Jaden Sellers, who seems like he's going to be a starter this year, wasn't really making an impact at the beginning of the year last year. It's kind of midway through. He comes in and he starts playing, and he starts playing well. The thing I think you got to keep in mind is exactly what you said. Like, this is summer stuff. It's athletic ability. It's out there at the player run stuff, right? Coaches can do more with the players than they used to be able to. So he's impressed there. Now, and I'm not saying he won't, but does that translate to, okay, now the pads are on? Now it's full 11 on 11 football, and you're a freshman wide receiver. Can you block? Can you get off the line? Like, there's a lot of different things. But athletically, man, like this kid, he had kind of an it factor in high school, playing all over the place, playing receiver, DB. Oh, our quarterback got hurt. I'll come in and throw the game-winning touchdown pass. Like he did stuff like that. And so wouldn't rule it out. Darius Gray, like similar, where you go, all right, well, it's going to be hard for a true freshman to break onto the field unless it's out of necessity. But Darius Gray, not your typical freshman. Like, if you've ever talked to this guy, heard him talk, he's got future team captain written all over him. I said early in the recruiting process when Carolina was on him, I think he's an NFL guy at center, but he could play multiple spots for you. And, of course, Carolina, while they brought back some experience from the portal, this is a new group playing together generally. Shed Surratt might be the only starter back from last year's team. So, does he have an opportunity, maybe not game one, but as the season progresses, to get on the field and impress? Maybe. I think from a mental makeup and talent standpoint, like he's got a lot of what you look for.
Yeah, and what spot has injuries? That's probably my least favorite thing about football, is that you're going to have injuries, man. You just do. And I know that's every sport, but football is such a physical game, as we know. You're going to have guys get banged up. And how many offensive linemen do you need over the course of a season? Most coaches will tell you they want at least 8 guys that they feel pretty good about. So can Darius break into that 8 to see someone you count on eventually at some point? The center position is one I feel like has somewhat gone from being one where we were penciling people in to saying, hey, this could be Carter Miller. This could be Nolan Hay, who is a returner on the offense as well. Does Darius Gray enter that conversation as well? Darius Gray, I think, is a college player who can play center, guard, or tackle. Now, I think NFL-wise, there's always been this thought that Darius kind of just physically, and then you look at the, high IQ kid, leadership type, great communicator, all those things. There's kind of been this thought, is Darius Gray a future NFL starting center? And so does that just go ahead, and is that the case already in college? Maybe so. Again, not saying right off the bat, but the beauty of football, it's a long year, man. There are all these different things that could happen. And right now we're in the let's try to predict some things that could happen and give everybody an idea of what to keep an eye on, basically.
Yeah. I think, and you gotta keep in mind, like, it's so funny, man. That's a small group that did not enroll early. It was those two, Caden Ramsey, the JUCO, Ashton Mazzone, KJ Johnson. Who else did I leave out there?
Neff.
Yeah. Neff Jiwa. Looks great, by the way. Huge human being. Never played football. Please keep that in mind.
Looks great physically.
Looks great physically. That has actually been under discussed since
Malik
it happened.
Orson.
Yeah, Malik Orson as a
is it Malik? I saw Beamer jokingly give Dave a lesson. Was it Malik? Is that how
Beamer said he had gotten corrected because he was saying Malik, but he said he thinks it's Malik, so that's what we're going to go with. So I mean, it's a smaller group that enrolled in the summer, and man, it used to be like I remember Stephon Gilmore's class. Stephon Gilmore, big time freshman. Oh, and he's enrolling early. It was like, what? We get this kid on campus early. Now it's like, if you don't, like, you're the outlier. So there's different reasons for that. Caden Ramsey, finished up his basketball season. Darius Gray, his high school, like, didn't allow it. Some guys have academics to finish, like, different reasons. But yeah, I think, since we mentioned Ramsey West, another thing we picked up, like Caden Ramsey, not going to play this year. Not going to play this year at tight end, but physically, good-looking kid. Can run, played safety in high school at 6'5", played receiver, small school guy at Cross, a lot of athletic upside. So getting the first look at those guys will be cool. Neff has been a little under-discussed, like, since that happened. And every now and then it'll kind of dawn on me, like, we're going to finally get to see that kid, like, eventually in pads. And just see, like, how he moves, like, how far off does he, like, can you visualize, like, all right, this guy could be something one day. Athletically, I think he does, but, there's a ways to go there.
I did see him walking around at Soda City a couple months ago, and I was from a distance like, who is that dude? And I was like, oh, Neff Jiwa has arrived. He is on campus. So, definitely tall, definitely physically put together as one might expect. So we'll see. Interesting experiment that I don't think factors into the 2026 season, but who knows, man? We shall see. All right. By the way, shout out. I don't know if he's on there anymore. We are live on Instagram now. Our guy Darius Rush commented and said, my guys. So shout out to Darius Rush.
D-Rush, what's up?
A Gamecock favorite. And also, I saw early on, Max Kelly had actually joined the show and or was watching. And that's a position battle as well. As we bring up Malik Orson, do you have Upton Belafont? Do you have Max Kelly? Are they able to keep Mason Love out of that competition? I think there's a great deal of confidence in Mason as the punter, someone who can maybe help out on kickoffs if needed. Is he able to stay out of that battle, or do they have to kind of enter him into that battle? We shall see. But, man, you're going to be in tight ball games. These games will come down to field goals at some point. That's just how it works. Will the Gamecocks be comfortable and confident sending guys out there? I'll ask it two ways. Will they be comfortable and confident sending somebody out there to make a mid-range, 33-yard field goal? Will they be confident if it's 4th and 10 and they need to kick a 55-yarder? That's a question until it's not, I like to say.
It absolutely is. And you never know, like, in both ways. I remember talking to Pete Limbo about this a few years ago at a media day, and you just don't really know until the guys get out there. You can have a guy that's charting really well and has all the physical tools in practice, and you get out there in a game, and it's different. You can have a situation like it was and Beamer was referencing this situation the other day, actually, before the 22 season, where Mitch Jeter and Alex Herrera are locked in a battle and they're charting similarly in practice. And it went right down to the wire, and they, not literally, but almost flipped a coin. And Jeter gets the job, and they didn't miss a field goal. So I think the biggest thing that Matthew Smiley, the new special teams coach, is going to be looking at is consistency. And I don't think that it was there in the spring as much as everybody would have wanted to see. So consistency. And then I think you bring up a good point, Wes. Carolina's been spoiled over the years from a kicker standpoint. How do they handle the long field goal situations? Because that was the past year or two, you felt like the range wasn't quite there consistently. And that doesn't mean trotting Parker White out to try 58-yard field goals all the time. But in some situations, hey, we kind of need this 50-yarder. We don't want to go for it here. We'd like to kick it and take our 3 points if we feel like we got a good chance. So from a percentage standpoint, actually, man, it has not been as bad. If you read some stuff on social media, you would think Carolina hasn't even made a field goal in the past 2 years. They've made some. Some of them have even been significant. The problem is some of the misses have been significant given the game situations, and you don't feel like the range has quite been there. So how do they handle all that? Big question mark for this season.
Yeah, we had a question on here, Chris. Is this the smallest group of summer enrollees as South Carolina's had in the Beamer era?
We would have to go back and look because I don't want to say wrong.
I feel like it was a small group last year too, though, right?
It was. It has trended that way. Just like it's just more of the trend now, you know. Yeah. I think it was a smaller group. I mean, I'm looking through it now. A lot of the guys that I'm looking through on that 2025 list were early enrollees, and I would have to go back and look to make sure. Like, okay, like I remember, I think Mike Tyler was summer, right? Christian Ingham was summer. Couple other guys in there. A lot of early enrollees, you know, still. So that's just kind of the trend nowadays. Everybody's doing it.
Well, and worth noting as well, like some of the later enrollees for this class were, you know, it was because they weren't even in the class yet. You know, like Neff was a late addition. Matthew O was I think we didn't mention him earlier. I think he was a February addition to the roster. Mozon, the JUCO O-line, like these are guys who were added later in the process anyway. So it wasn't like they committed earlier and signed in, you know, December and then were enrolled late. It was more just like they literally couldn't enroll yet because they weren't on the roster yet. Sequel, same situation as Donovan Murph. He is a high school early enrollee by a full year, so he was coming in the summer. You know, so not really late, actually early, but a full year early for both of those guys. So anyway, fascinating stuff there. And, man, I'm excited to get out there. So for those who are curious, you do have Shane Beamer talking tomorrow. I believe that's at about 3 o'clock. And then you have that part should be live, I would think, for those who like to watch those on YouTube. We will certainly post it on YouTube after. You have a media day where you will be able to hear from all the coaches again and a bunch of players again. That is on Thursday too. And then Friday is camp day one, preseason camp number one. And we'll be out there watching some of practice. And then on Saturday, we'll actually be able to watch some of practice as well. So big stuff happening. Show-wise, we're getting closer to our in-season schedule where you will see at least 3 shows throughout the week. And the plan right now, so obviously we're doing this show today. Jack and Kendall will be on Thursday. And then Chris and I will be on again on Friday where we'll be able to, let's be honest, overreact to whatever we saw at practice for the 15 or so minutes we get to watch. And we'll be there to talk about that on Friday. So, man, it's here. I'm ready to dive into it and excited about everything we got planned for everybody on GamecockCentral.com.
Super excited. Got our deal going on, Wes. Never been a better time. Gamecock Central and the Big Spur. Like when I was on JB's show earlier, Wes, I started to say this, tried to check myself. Because, you know, a lot of times we go in the season, hey, we want to make this our best season yet of coverage. And that really is our goal. But then I realized, like, no, actually, we are literally going to have more content than we've ever had on the site because of us joining forces with the Big Spur. So if you don't like me and you only like Wes and the Big Spur guys or any combination of that, you can ignore whoever you don't like. Focus on the people you do like. If you like all of us, that's great. We love you regardless. Tons of content coming, starting with camp. Or really, it's already started, Wes. Limited time deal, so go check it out. We'll take you through camp. We'll take you through the season. And this deal, man, it comes out to $249 a month. So $30 about for the year. If you don't like us after that, you can cancel. But the community's never been better, never been bigger. Big plans for this season. Come check us out.
Yeah, looking so forward to that, man. Got a lot of great stuff planned for everybody. And like you said, $30 a year, basically, for your first year. So come check us out if you're not already a subscriber. I know a lot of you in the chat already are. And, man, we appreciate you guys more than we could ever say. So, all right, that's going to do it for today's show. Shout out to everybody, man. Y'all are fired up today. Let's keep that energy going. Let's roll it into the season. And looking forward to another awesome year with you all. And hopefully, man, we're talking about a surprise Gamecock football team, because I don't want to talk about disappointment anymore. I want for you guys to be happy. I want to be talking about wins and big moments. And for these guys that we've followed, a lot of them for so long now, that are in their third and fourth and fifth years in this program, I want to see them finish off with some success. I'll be completely honest. I'm a homer for some of these guys, man. Like, we just want to see them personally succeed. So looking forward to hopefully enjoying that with all of you guys. Again, Kendall and Jack will be on Thursday. Chris and I will be back on Friday, and we will see you then.